today. Tottenham sign Dragusin, and Spurs fans very, very happy, very, very excited about this because they've also had Bayern Munich reportedly rejected in the process. Tell us about this deal, the type of player that he is, and what Tottenham fans can expect, Ben.
Yeah, very Ange Postecoglou type signing, ball playing, defender, confident and composed, and exactly what Tottenham need: depth and discipline, and a cultured kind of modern defender that can also win his fair share of aerial duels and have an impact in both boxes. So Tottenham are absolutely delighted with this one. I think that the market's been a bit misled by Nice's Jean-Claire Todibo because Tottenham saw him as a priority and maybe the build-up to the window. Chelsea have been linked, as have Manchester United. But my understanding is that that was never really possible, and Spurs opened talks and found that very quickly because the price would need to be around 60 million euros. And even then, Nice might say no because they're challenging for Champions League football. So Tottenham moved very quickly to Dragusin, and they were always optimistic. I know we heard some reports in the last 48 hours that Bayern were getting closer. And obviously elements of that proved to be true because Bayern made a formal bid. And in doing so, they made Spurs sweat a little bit. But the legwork that Tottenham had put in paid off because prior to Bayern coming in, Tottenham had already agreed terms with the player. And also, Genoa had actually prepared the documents when Bayern finally made a formal bid. So it's a package of around 30 million euros. Jed Spence is also going on loan to Genoa. I think that sold it to Genoa in many ways, although they did accept the Bayern offer as well. And then this morning, the formalities are being completed and Dragusin is heading off to London. So Tottenham have had a good start to the window because Timo Werner has joined on loan as well from Leipzig. And this transfer was a bit more of a saga. But ultimately, when you give a player a consistent narrative and when you show you're prepared to bid quickly and resolve their future in the early part of the window, and when you have a manager like Ange Postecoglou who gives a very clear vision to players, all of that adds up in the end. And I think Bayern, even if the player was tempted by that kind of project and ultimately Champions League football, I think it was too late in the process for Bayern to change Dragusin's mind. So as always reported, Tottenham were optimistic on this one, even when Bayern made the bid. And now they've made 2 signings in the first 10 days of the window, assuming that the formalities and the medical goes according to plan.
Yeah, Strasbourg Steve here with the Super Chat says, this is an excellent signing for Spurs. This guy, Dragusin, is going to be the envy of many in the Premier League. He was Genoa's player of the year, in my opinion. And Strasbourg Steve, I will say this. I know you'll come across this a lot, Ben, on social media. People that pretend they watch a lot of all the leagues. This guy sent me pictures. On a Saturday afternoon, he has about 10 screens set up in his bedroom with all the different leagues. Like, legit, this guy watches everything. So I trust his opinion. When it comes to Timo Werner, that was also an interesting one because nobody was really talking about him, but they got it done quickly. Quite a big fanfare when he arrived. There is I believe there is an option to buy clause for them. Both are these two players very much big Ange Postecoglou signings, players that he thinks he can really get the best out of?
Yeah, I think that you got to give everyone at Spurs a little bit of credit, particularly Johan Lang as well. But by the same token, Postecoglou has had a fair amount of input, and that's partially down to the fact that at the period when he joined, Tottenham hadn't really built a team that had started. Even someone like Scott Munn, that was known to be incoming, hadn't actually arrived at the club and started. So Postecoglou has had a lot of say, and it's normal as well because good clubs window plan. But if you're Tottenham and you had a plan coming into last summer or this January, it was framed to an extent, even though they kind of knew he was outgoing, around Antonio Conte. And not only that, but even after Conte leaves, you're left with Conte-type players. And not all of them are suited to how Postecoglou likes to play, with this high line, composure, sweeper keeper, very gung-ho in many ways. And this is why the manager and his philosophy needs to have big input, because it's a massive change from Conte ball to Ange ball, if you like. With Werner, it was obviously about Son and depth and Asian Cup. But the buy option tells you, as I've reported, that Tottenham still see this as potentially for the long term. And it's like a win-win situation in many ways, because last season, Werner played something in the region of 40 games and got into double figures. I think it was 16 goals in all competitions. This season, just 2 goals in the Bundesliga and only 8 appearances. So he needs game time if he's to be in contention for the Euros. And Tottenham need depth and versatility. And they feel like even when Son returns, they can still use him in different areas and positions. And the beauty as well with Son is it's exactly the same. Harry Kane leaves. I don't think we can call Werner a Kane replacement at all, because very different. And I think that in the summer, Tottenham will still be looking to, in inverted commas, replace Kane. And by replace, I obviously mean in terms of profile. I think Kane himself is irreplaceable, but you're looking for someone in that Kane type model. But for now, you've got the opportunity to play Son wide, and then Richarlison can lead the line. You've got the chance to move Son into a more advanced position where he was very effective with James Maddison, who's coming back from injury. You've got the chance to incorporate Werner in a variety of different positions across your front line. And Manor Solomon is still to come back as well. And I think when you look at a number of those players, that V-word versatility is something that they've all got in common. So it's obvious that Postecoglou likes to chop and change and have players move and switch sides and be able to adapt. And by adapt, I don't just mean to injuries or your starting formation or any of your pre-planning. I mean within game management. And whereas maybe at the moment at Chelsea, Maurizio Pochettino is being challenged for his game management, for his substitutions, I think Postecoglou's had no real choice. His hands have been tied by injuries and circumstance. And now he'll have a bit more depth. So we'll start to maybe see Ange the tactician coming through. And I'm intrigued when everyone's fit to see who he puts where. Because I still think that Son has actually benefited from Harry Kane leaving. And if Son can lead the line and Maddison can come back, I think that was the partnership that got Spurs top of the Premier League. Whereas if you let Richarlison lead the line, you can argue he got 5 goals in December in the Premier League. So why not? But then Son's going to be wider. And I don't think with Maddison also in the side, he's as effective. And you've got to factor in Werner as well. So it fascinates me beyond, let's say, mid-February, because at this stage, Postecoglou is going to use Werner. His hands are tied. Son's away. But if we look at a stable Spurs post window in mid-February until the end of the season, who starts? And it's really difficult because Son is the first name on the team sheet and he's the captain. And Maddison is one of the first names on the team sheet. Again, that's your core. So then how do you bring in all of these other players? And we're going to have to wait and see. But I think Spurs are sport for choice, but they're also riddled by injuries. And at the same time, they're not actually that far off first place. So it's going to be really intriguing to see how they perform in the second half of the season.
It certainly is, and Spurs fans were asking for quick business to be done, not leaving it to the end of January, and they've got that. Stragsball Steve here says, the only question I have for Dragusin isn't the switch from Italy to England. It's going to be going from playing in a back 3 to a back 4 on a higher line. I don't worry too much because he steps up and makes good decisions. I appreciate those super chats regarding this subject. Hit like buttons and share, people, please.